Okay, story time. Just to let you know, you're reading the title correctly. This is a true story. So, last year in April, I worked with this lady, and when I started working with her, I was like, okay, I'm going to help her out with her story. She wanted feedback because she had like a completed first draft already, but she just wanted feedback on it. She's been working on it for like 11 plus years or so. So I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's have these meetings and figure it out. I'd be suggesting everybody I work with to have like Zoom meetings with me or any type of meeting or whatever. Usually it lasts like about an hour. Sometimes it lasts a lot longer depending on our creative ideas, whatever. That's not the point. The point is her circumstances. So when I started working with her, I realized, because I did not know originally, but as I was working with her, I realized she was working full time. She was raising, I believe it was two or three kids. I know it was at least two, right? She was also raising money to run a business. I think she was starting a company, and like legit, she was starting something because I think she was like discussing it with me, things like that. But it was like a app, like a writing app she wanted to do. I think it was to have like writers be able to find editors easier. I think it was something like that. But the main point is she was able to find time to like have meetings with me, focus on her story, figuring out ways to publish her story while doing all three of those things, being a mother, working full time and providing, as well as trying to explore her own endeavors and following her dreams. Like she had a lot of projects in her plate and a lot of responsibilities as well. So how the hell was he able to find time to do all of this simultaneously? And this is the main lesson I want to give to you, especially for busy people who find themselves not having enough time to write their story or have creative ideas, things like that. Especially when you're working full time and you have a lot of other responsibilities, especially as a parent, other stuff as well. But yeah, the first lesson is time blocking. We made sure to have like a specific time to meet. We weren't meeting every single day, but maybe it was like three times a week, I'll say. Yeah, so we would give out like a time block. And what we would do is we will figure out from the previous meeting what we need to do in the next meeting so that we don't waste time trying to figure out in the beginning of the meeting what we need to do next, what has to be done, what's the progress we need to make. So we're trying to minimize as much time that's wasted as much as possible. So before the end of the previous meeting, we're gonna be like, okay, this is what's next and what we need to figure out in the next meeting. So we're gonna do that, and then boom, once the next meeting starts, that's when we will start coming up with ideas or follow up on what we said in the previous meeting. And we usually would keep a consistent schedule. Like we usually meet at a certain time and we just go from there. And I think that's probably one of the main reasons why she hired me, so that she'll have like accountability partner and then she'll have someone there to kind of support her and help her throughout this journey. And I think that's the first thing that I want to say as well. Not the first, but the second after the time blocking is having a great support system. Like, of course, when she's taking care of the kids and having a full time job and stuff, she has her husband to help her with those type of things, like, especially with the kids' end. So she has a support system there. I believe she had a business partner, or either she had a business partner or she had like investors supporting her when it comes to her business and that endeavors. And then of course she had me to help support her with her story and publishing and feedback, editing, things like that. So having a support system, if you can, definitely helps a lot when it comes to productivity, finding time, prioritizing, things like that. Because a lot of times it's hard for us to stay accountable for ourselves and stick to things, but when we are having someone else be part of that project as well, is we don't want to let that person down. So that's why it's a lot easier for us to keep track of things when we have someone else involved as well. So I'm assuming that's probably one of the reasons why I was hired, now that I think about it. But moving on to the next point I want to make, Another thing I noticed in our meetings is she's always had preparations before the meetings. So, like, let's say she had to like cook for her family. The days when I'm meeting with her, she makes her husband aware of it so that her husband could pick up the kids. So what will happen is when their kids come home, food is already well prepared and ready. So she's able to minimize distractions as much as possible and focus on her story as much as possible. So it's all about preparation as well, how well you prepare your day. The more predictable you could have your day, the easier it is. So like for example, like literally there's been times where her one of her kids like interrupt the session and he's asking her, "Oh, like what's for dinner? I don't know where the food is. Where's for dinner? Help me, mom." Things like that, which is bound to happen regardless. But she was able to quickly answer with, "Oh yeah, the pot's over there. It's ready to go. Just share out your food and eat whatever is there." And then that easily solved that issue fast, instantly, instead of her having to, get up, prepare the meal, whatever, figure out what the kids could eat, and kind of trying to figure out things in the moment. Like since it was already figured out previously, it just made it a lot easier for her to, prioritize the task she has in hand right now, which of course she wanted to spend time working on her story. So that's what happened. And speaking of like, kids coming up and maybe interrupting the session and stuff. And now that I think about it, she also had pets too. I think she had like a cat. It was either a cat or a dog, and the dog or whatever animal it was would interrupt the session as well, but not too bad. But like sometimes the husband would have to like take the dog outside for a walk because it was like interrupting and like trying to be playful with the mom. So one thing, if you want to take anything from this video, is you also have to learn to accept that not everything could be under your control. Like there's gonna be things that happen regardless of how well you prepare yourself or how well you communicated. Things gonna happen. Like it's just how life is. There's always gonna be circumstances that you were not well prepared for that as you thought you would be. And as long as you stack odds into your favor as much as possible, that's really the best you could really do. And that's really the main thing that I got from her, is like just stacking the odds in your favor as best as you can. And that's really all you could really hope for. And it worked out a lot because we were working from chapter one to like, I don't know how much chapters she has, like 30 plus chapters. And we end up being able to revise, edit all of her chapters despite that, just from consistent planning. 3 times a week, we could do at least an hour. Make sure in the end of our meeting, we prep for the next meeting. Make it as predictable as possible. If anything happens, if any unpredictable circumstance happens, then we just adapt and evolve. Not evolve, but like we will adapt and figure things out along the way. But we try to have a plan and stick to it as best as we can. And that's really the main point. It's just having a routine and sticking to it as best as you can. That's all you could really hope for. One thing that really helped as well was the momentum part of it. Because we were developing a routine, it kind of made it easier for her to show up to these meetings, or it made it easier for her to work on her story, because it's like a snowball effect. It compound. The more ideas we come up with, the better it is for her, because now when she's doing other tasks, she might have a better chance to come up with ideas as well while doing other tasks, just because we had the momentum of meeting up and discussing her story. So she's having this story in her mind more and more each day. So if you're a busy person, especially if this is your circumstances, you work full time, you have kids, heck, maybe you're trying to run a business, heck, maybe, you're trying to spend time with your husband or wife, maybe you have pets, things like that. Based on this experience, here's are my top tips: time blocking, having routine, try to have a predictable time where you can focus on your story. That'd be great. Preparation and communication is super, super important. That's probably the number one. Communication, preparation, as best as you can. Whatever you could prepare for, whatever it's meals, meal prep, things like that. letting your spouse know that this is going to be your dedication, your time block for your story, and just accepting that there's going to be times where things are not going to go your way despite how much you prepare. But the fact that you're able to stack the odds in your favor as best as you can, that's all that really, really matters. And lastly, of course, if necessary, if you feel like all these strategies is not enough for you, you can have like an accountability partner that could really help you stay focused in whatever endeavors you were trying to do with your story, with your life, anything in general. But yeah, after that experience, that really had me think that, man, if she could do this, I have no excuse. Like, I better be able to write out more than what she's able to do, because she's able to do a lot. Like, she was able to do a full story, like 30 plus chapters or whatever, you know? And I'm impressed. I'm impressed. That really impressed me a lot. So props to her. And that inspired me a lot to really keep going and not make excuses for myself. So yeah, I hope this video helps. I hope this little story, I didn't really go much into details, but that's really mainly for privacy reasons. But I hope this helped with your circumstance and how you feel about the story and how you feel about the process of writing your story. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know what you've been going through when it comes to writing out your story. Because I know when you have something you want to work on and you don't have time to work on it, it always haunts your mind. Like, it's just in your mind to do something about it, but you just don't know what to do to find time in order to work on it. But it's like in your brain, like, do this, you must do this, like, please, like, work on your story. Like, your subconscious is like banging your head all the time to work on it. But finding that time, man, it is a tough process. Like, there's been times where I was working with her and she had to like stop the session like 15 minutes in just because of, she needs to help out her child, or her spouse needs her for something, or like he's coming home late from work so she has to do more at home, things like that. So it will never be perfect. There's gonna be times where you're not gonna have time, or you're just gonna have 5 minutes at most, 15 minutes. But I just want to also say too that sometimes that's worth it. Like, just spending whatever time you could afford is worth spending that time. So yeah, I hope this resonates with you. Just to let you know, speaking of accountability partner, if you want to work with me, especially with your outline, brainstorming ideas, any shape or form, any way you need help with completing your outline, you could click on a video over here and it will explain my consultation calls of how I run these calls, things like that. And you could book a call with me whenever, if you feel ready to, complete your outline, start your drafting process. If you need feedback, if you don't feel like you're ready, you need feedback in general, yeah, you could definitely do that. So yeah, if a story resonates with you, always find time for it. Always make it one of your priorities, because there's a reason why it's in your head in the first place. There's a reason why your brain never lets you stop thinking about it. So follow it. Follow your intuition and make sure that story gets out of your head and into a piece of paper or a screen nowadays. So yeah, thanks for watching. Have a great day.